Next thing I want you to do is I want you to create renderings of your views. So I'm hoping you may already know how to do this, but I think it's a little tricky to get things from Enscape as far as orthographic information from Enscape and Revit. So you probably don't know how to do this. Alright, so what we're going to do, because in the end what we want is kind of a plan like this, although I'll tweak a few settings before we get to it. So this is what we want. A boring plan, to say the least, at the moment, with one opening and not really much going on, but that's alright. This is about lighting and a few other things. So, okay. What you need to do is you need to create a 3D view. You probably already have this. I think I have a copy. Yep, I think we're going to use that one. Alright, you want a 3D view. You want that 3D view to have a section box, yeah. Let's see, what else do we want? Perspective turn to orthographic. Okay. So it's kind of perfect like that. Alright. The trick, because Enscape will only really render 3D objects, so we need to create a scenario where this will become your plan. So I'm going to pull this section box down to somewhere in, where a normal section would be. If you want the lights included, you'd have it here. If you don't want the lights included, you'd have it here. Typically, sconces would not show up, so I'm going to move it down. And then you want to hit top. No. Well, you want it to basically be in the right orientation. If we look at this, we need the opening to be to the left. So I'm going to tweak this until it's oriented right. Alright, I've also created a move this out. I've also created a floor, basically a concrete floor that's outside of the room. So you need to create something here. So if we look at just a typical view, you can see I've got this created. So just a floor with an opening around the rooms and just give it generic concrete. Okay? Alright, so we should be on this. Once you have it set up the way that it should look, you can go ahead and call it, what I've done is I've called a plan Enscape. So essentially there we go. That's where this view is at. And I've turned the shadows on. Don't know if that's really necessary. As long as they're on in Enscape, you're fine. Okay, so I have that. And I did the exact same thing, but just did it to a vertical section box for my section. Okay, so you'll want to do this for both sections. Alright, so once you have that set up for both of your, all of your views, let's go into actually rendering them. So you'll, right now I'm on Plan Enscape. See if I switch this to, sorry, this is off screen. There we go. Right. I did have some issues with when I was getting this set up, so I want to kind of reverse engineer a little bit of that. View management. So say your shadows aren't kind of coming down the way you want them. So I mean, top right or top left is probably the normal way we'd render. You want to click on that plan and then click on this, and you should be able to turn on save Enscape sun position, and then put it in at exactly where you want it. So if it's that, or it's negative 40, well, that's actually the wrong one. It'd be more like this, going negative 45. Okay, it's not going to, so it'd be, math 315, I think. Yeah. And then it's coming from the other direction. Okay? And then you'll save that. And that should be good to go. And then the other thing that I found was that when you're saving that information, it'll save exactly where you're at in this view. Okay? So if you, let's click that off. If you happen to have it kind of up here and kind of in a wonky spot, when I do this, it's always going to retain that location. So if you have problems like going back and forth and it's not kind of in the right alignment, you just need to go in to where it's perfect on your screen, and then make sure that's again accurate and safe. There's no positioning of the sun that's going to bring the sun in. I don't really want that anyway, so this is perfectly fine. Right. So you do want to create views for each of those, so that they're saved, and you can just kind of click between them. And then once you have them those set up, you should be able to do the batch rendering. And if you have issues and it seems cropped in a funny way, go back to here and do that unsave and then save again. Make sure you move it to the right place. Just a rendering. Remember that these don't have any kind of scale. So I guess that would be the other thing that we should go through. Click on this visual settings. A couple of things that we probably should note. This might be a little dark. So depending on kind of what you're trying to get, it may be better to kind of move this exposure up a little bit. And that's, somewhere in there looks about right. Let's look at the plan real quick. There's no good way to change the shadow, because this is really too dark, and then it gets really way too much there. So I'm going to land somewhere in this realm, and then I'm going to show you something that we'll do to control that a little bit more before we get the final. So you want to make sure that you're kind of at a pretty renderings. Full HD is probably great. When you get into your actual project and they're really larger images that are trying to communicate things at a bigger scale, as it were, or using the screen to show a lot more things than just a few things, you might want to move this up to like ultra. But for right now, I think this is fine. So we're going to keep those settings there, and we'd render this again. Alright, so you may have noticed that my poche was white, and yours is probably some gray, or it shows some kind of CMU or material color. I realized that I changed something that I need to show you how to do. It's pretty simple. What you're going to do is go under materials and look for poche. Heck, first I'm going to get it back to kind of probably where you're at. So I'm going to do that. I went from display quality being coarse to medium. And then likely you see something that's more like this. And it turns all of your poche go to coarse. It'll show. It should show. That's how it shows up for you. So it's a pretty easy setting. In fact, I'm not going to change any of that to get it to look right in Enscape. All I'm going to do is use rendered appearance and make sure that this, whatever it's set at, it's probably some gray, just turn to white. It shows up fine in Revit, and then let's see what it looks like in Enscape. So likely that is what you need to do. And you'll notice that your section is still going to be a little funky depending on how your light settings are set up. So I'm going to show you that too, because I've been trying to tweak that and find a good location. I'm not sure how your settings are set up, if there's like this, or if it's something down here so that you can see the lights. Essentially, I'm turning the sun on or off, you know, as I get that altitude angle correct. I haven't found a happy medium, so this actually looks white. And you notice on my plan, it looks perfect, right? It's white, but not here. Because what's happening is that wherever the sun is and its temperature at that moment, color temperature, it's changing that color of the poche. So I've got to get it somewhere in a place where I like the lighting, what's going to be rendered in the section, and then this to be an extreme enough that I can select it in Photoshop, I guess. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to set this up here. I'm going to look at my settings. If your settings don't look like mine, you basically want to find a good place where your section is going to render correctly for whatever you're trying to get. Whether if you have a bunch of windows and it's lighting coming in, you have to deal with that. In our little kind of black box, all I'm trying to do is get that lighting to look right. So we're going to land somewhere on artificial light brightness being there. I'm going to probably tone down the exposure a bit. Now, what I'm not happy with this is that we turned it up for the plan. So I'm really going to have to find that kind of, is this good for both or not? So you're just going to flip through between the two drawings that you're doing and find the right setting. And then essentially I'm going to save this so that it sets that up nicely. I look at the plan, it looks like it's fine with those settings, and then I'm going to render that.